So who's excited about AI? Here. Oh, yay. Who's nervous about it? Okay, I see a mix. I feel both, and there's good reason. AI is a complex and controversial topic, and we're hearing all sorts of conflicting messages. Killer robots are going to take all our jobs and murder us. AI will cure cancer and usher in utopia. This is just marketing hype, and AI is nothing but a buzzword. There is a kernel of truth in all these statements, but the reality is more complex and nuanced. It's natural to feel like if you're not a math genius or you don't have a PhD from Stanford, that you couldn't possibly hope to understand what's going on, much less to get involved. I'm here to tell you that is false. It is not only possible for everyone to get involved with AI, it is actually crucial that you do so. I say this as someone who is an unlikely person to become an AI researcher, and we need more unlikely people in the field, both to address the harms that are being caused, as well as to take full advantage of the positive opportunities. But first, what is AI? AI refers to any technique that allows a computer to appear to be acting with some level of intelligence. AI is in products like how Google Photos automatically organizes your picture collection. Here, it's grouped together temples, skyline, and food into separate categories. AI is in Skype Translator, which lets people speaking different languages communicate in real time. These are both examples of a particular type of AI called deep learning. In the past couple of years, deep learning has achieved better than human results on tasks that we used to think only humans could do, like recognizing pictures and understanding speech. One misconception about AI researchers is that we're all trying to recreate a human brain or to get a computer to achieve human consciousness. Many of us are not. Many of us, including me, are interested in practical solutions to real-world problems, like identifying lung cancer on a CT scan. I'll talk more about some of these positive applications in a moment, but first I want to address 3 aspects of AI that worry me. The first is that AI is encoding and magnifying human bias. Computer vision has repeatedly performed worse on people of color. Research earlier this year from Joy Balamwini and Timnit Gebru evaluated computer vision products from IBM, Microsoft, and elsewhere. And they found that these products performed worse on women than on men, and worse on people with dark skin compared to people with light skin. For instance, IBM's computer vision software was 99.7% accurate on light-skinned men, and only 65% accurate on dark-skinned women. That's ridiculous. That's a huge difference, 34%. Bias is also being encoded in language and translation tools, like Google Translate. If you give Google Translate a pair of English sentences, she is a doctor, he is a nurse, translate those into Turkish, which has a gender-neutral singular pronoun, and then back into English, they come back with the genders flipped to fit the stereotype. He is a doctor, she is a nurse. And this is just one example out of many biases that are encoded in Google Translate. Second area that worries me is that AI is promoting and incentivizing conspiracy theories. People watch over 1 billion hours of YouTube per day. That's per day. That's huge. And part of YouTube's success is because of its recommendation algorithm. So when you're watching YouTube, there's a sidebar that says Up Next and has several videos selected by an algorithm. These recommendations disproportionately include conspiracy theorist and white supremacist. This phenomena has been investigated by the Wall Street Journal and The Guardian, and it's been written about in the New York Times. So what's going on here? This is not an intentional evil plot, but YouTube's algorithm is trying to maximize how much time people spend watching YouTube, because they earn more money that way. And conspiracy theorists watch way more YouTube than people that trust a variety of media sources. Time we spend on other media sources is bad for YouTube's bottom line. So Google, which owns YouTube, is earning a lot of money while pumping pollution into the rest of society. In this case, that pollution's in the form of the political and social impact of having lots of people who believe conspiracy theories and distrust mainstream media sources, in addition to even egging on conspiracy theorists to come out with more extreme material, because that's what's rewarded. The problems posed by AI can often feel very new, but in this case, this problem of what to do when a company is profiting while offsetting its cost to everyone else, that's something that economists and public policy experts have been looking at for ages, and we could use their help here. And before I explain the third area, let's start by watching this video. So you'll see some green and red rectangles on the left. And those are identifying people's heads and faces, even though this video is at a distance and people are in a crowd. I find this pretty creepy. AI can be used by authoritarian governments for surveillance. So currently in China, 1 million people who are members of an ethnic minority are in internment camps, and surveillance has helped facilitate that. This video is from a Chinese company called Deep Glint. It's 2 years old. The technology has only continued to advance since then. Last year, there was research on how to identify protesters in a crowd, even if they're wearing hats or scarves to try to conceal their identities. And this is not just a problem abroad. In the United States earlier this year, we learned that Palantir, which is a tech company founded by billionaire and Trump donor Peter Thiel, Palantir had been using New Orleans as a testbed for its predictive policing technology for the last 6 years. This program was so secretive that even city council members didn't know about it, much less have any oversight. Amazon is already selling facial recognition software to police. And this software is in use by police in Orlando and Oregon, even though the ACLU is raising concerns about the racial bias and inaccuracy of Amazon's software. I think the combination of a total lack of accountability, transparency, or oversight, together with racial bias in existing police data that will be used to train these algorithms, together with the repeated failure of computer vision on people of color, makes this a really frightening combination. So part of the reason that we're seeing so many unsettling and even scary applications of AI is because of how incredibly narrow the group of people that's creating it is, and how many of us are not represented by that group. Only 12% of machine learning researchers are women. The numbers are similarly dire when it comes to race, geodiversity, and background. On top of this, people in tech are often building AI without any sort of input or collaboration from fields like sociology, psychology, or history that can help us better understand how tech and humans interact. I've personally experienced how toxic the environment can be in academic STEM fields and in the tech industry, and it scares me that the same people responsible for creating these toxic environments are the primary ones creating powerful AI technology. I am an AI researcher, but I'm a very unlikely person to have become an AI researcher. And my goal is to help more unlikely people find their way into the field. I've felt like an outsider my entire life. I could never find the community I was looking for, not in academia and not in tech, so I eventually decided to create that community for myself, for other outsiders, for people who've been excluded or who can't afford the resources. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas near a cluster of chemical refineries. I attended a poor, predominantly Black public high school that was later ranked in the bottom 2% of Texas schools. I was pepper sprayed by police while I was at school. And there were some great students and teachers at my school, but even as a teenager, it was clear we did not have the resources or the opportunities that wealthier schools had, and we were not treated the same. Unlikely as it was, I completed my PhD in math. I did not fit in. Like most math PhD programs, my program was almost entirely male. I experienced sexism, harassment, and isolation. I watched several of my female friends drop out due to the culture. My thesis advisor even told me I was too feminine to be successful, and he later stopped meeting with me. It was devastating. Years later, I sold my car, my furniture, and most of what I owned to move to San Francisco with just 2 suitcases and a new dream of becoming a data scientist. I did not know anybody who worked in tech. It was not a career option I'd really been exposed to. And I felt like people in tech were speaking a foreign language. Eventually, I achieved my goal, and I landed a job as a data scientist and software engineer at an up-and-coming startup that would later go on to become a multi-billion-dollar company and household name. Everyone kept telling me I'd made it, but I was miserable. Once again, I did not fit in. The environment was aggressive, sexist, and isolating, and I dreaded going to work each morning. During the same period of time, I first got interested in deep learning. In 2012, I read a New York Times article about an academic group that had no expert knowledge of biochemistry, but was using deep learning to automatically design new pharmaceutical drugs. This is exactly the type of practical AI I'm interested in. As I told friends and acquaintances what I was learning, many people told me that they could never understand AI, that they weren't smart enough, or their brain wasn't wired the right way. These are all myths. This is completely false for a number of reasons. As I got deeper into the field and learned the practical techniques needed to create state-of-the-art models, I saw that in most cases, the math theory wasn't even necessary to become a working practitioner. I also saw that the field was unnecessarily exclusive. In 2013, I went to a talk that a star in the field was giving, and I asked him a simple practical question during the Q&A. He not only didn't answer my question, he told me that nobody who knew the answer, so people like him, nobody was writing it down. If you weren't part of the inside crowd, tough luck. But it doesn't have to be like that. For much of my life, I thought it was a negative that I didn't and couldn't fit in. I sometimes even wished that I could be a different person so I could better fit into the toxic environments I was in. But it turns out the ways I don't fit in are valuable. They allowed me to see a gap that the current system in academia and in tech and in the AI community isn't built for people like me. It's not built for most of us. My different background allowed me to create something different. 2 years ago, I partnered with Jeremy Howard, who's a philosophy major with no graduate degree and no formal machine learning training. And we decided to create a course to teach state-of-the-art deep learning with no advanced math prerequisites. And we made this available completely for free. Our motto is making neural networks uncool, because being cool is about being exclusive, and that's the opposite of what I want. We've had so most people who take our course are working professionals doing this in their spare time, and we've had tens of thousands of people take the class and apply deep learning to problems they care about, whether this is at nonprofits or Fortune 500 companies, launching startups or winning hackathons. And despite all these success stories, I continue to hear from experts saying that what we're doing is impossible. We're disproving the myth that you need the fanciest, most expensive computer and the fanciest, most prestigious background to do cutting-edge work. Earlier this year, a group of our part-time students entered a competition against engineers from Google and Google and Intel. And these teams at Google and Intel had access to way more expensive computers, yet our team won. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so proud of them for this. This was covered in The Verge and the MIT Tech Review. And they're showing that you don't have to work at Google or have Google-like resources to do state-of-the-art work. One person who's taken our course is Melissa Fabros. Melissa was an English literature PhD student focused on American poetry before switching careers a few years ago. She's now an engineer at the micro-lending nonprofit Kiva, which lets people make small loans to entrepreneurs around the world. Melissa discovered that computer vision software couldn't identify pictures of Kiva users because this software was primarily trained by and on white people. Melissa won a prestigious grant to help fund her project to address this. Another person who's taken our class is Sarah Hooker. Sarah was an economics major who only learned to code a few years before the class. Sarah started Delta Analytics to pair data scientists with nonprofits. Sarah and a team worked with Rainforest Connection, which puts recycled cell phones up on trees in endangered rainforest, streams audio, and then uses deep learning to identify chainsaw noises if someone's illegally cutting down the forest. They're experts who say our students will never get jobs in the field, yet Sarah now works for Google and is helping to open Google's first AI research center in Africa. These are just a few stories out of many. Other people who have taken our class have helped farmers in India, created wearable devices for patients with Parkinson's disease, invented new styles of artwork and music, and even had their work featured on HBO and in Forbes. I was contacted by a Canadian dairy farmer who wants to use deep learning to improve the health of his goats' udders. I never would have guessed that AI could be applied to goat udders, but this is exactly the type of person I want to help. I want to help other unlikely people, other outsiders. People sometimes ask me if it's dangerous to make AI accessible to more people. What's dangerous is having an exclusive and homogeneous group creating technology that impacts us all. We've seen the harms being caused by companies like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Amazon, Palantir, and others, and we need people from more diverse backgrounds to try to address those harms. We need people from communities that have been disproportionately targeted with harassment to help create our technology, because they have a deeper understanding of how tech can be weaponized against the most vulnerable and of what safeguards we need to put in place. And we also need more people who are experts about people, about human behavior, human psychology, and human history. The reason I want everyone involved with AI is that you know about problems nobody else knows about, and you have skills and a background that nobody else has. I didn't know about using old cell phones to protect the rainforest, about the suicide rate for farmers in India, or about the health of goat udders. Yet these are all problems my students have worked on. I'm so glad that my students didn't believe the myth that AI is only for math prodigies, but that they knew their perspectives are valuable. We need journalists, lawyers, hospital administrators, hotel sales managers, sociologists, CEOs, historians, and more to understand the capabilities of AI. It doesn't matter if you didn't go to the right school, if math makes you anxious, if your friends and colleagues think you're the last person they'd ever expect to be working with AI. AI needs more unlikely people, and the world needs you involved with AI. Thank you.